Good, all right. Kenmore City Council is now in order. Pursuant to RCW 42.30.1111G and I, the City Council now enter into an executive session to, one, evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment, and two, discuss pending litigation. This executive session is slated to last approximately 90 minutes until 7 p.m.
Hi, Stacy. Just wanted to let you know I see you. You can go ahead and lower your hand, and when the time is right, I can call you during the regular meeting. Thanks.
Anastasia,
Yes, I'm here.
thank you.
Kenmore City Council is coming out of executive session. Hang on 2 seconds. The chair would entertain a motion that the city accept Tomco's settlement offer to settle King County case number 24-2-29792-8 for $50,000 in exchange for dismissal with prejudice, and authorize the city manager to effectuate all documents necessary to accomplish the settlement, including signing a settlement agreement on terms acceptable to the city manager.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the roll?
On that motion, Councilmember Culver,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Sassen,
Yes.
Councilmember Shrubnik,
Yes.
Councilmember Lutsis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kane,
Yes.
Mayor Herbig.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously, and clerks, I'm emailing over that language right now. All right, that brings us to the close of our executive session, adjourning the special session, and I'm calling the regular meeting to order. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Culver,
Present.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Sassen,
Here.
Councilmember Shrubnik,
Here.
Councilmember Lutsis,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kane,
Here.
Mayor Herbig,
Here.
all present.
Next on our agenda is the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the city of Kenmore is situated upon the ancestral lands of the Snohomish, Snoqualmie, Soxhawtl, Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Tulalip, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and other tribes who are part of the Coast Salish peoples. We recognize and express our deepest respect for their enduring stewardship and profound relationship with this land. And we have cherished and protected, that they have cherished and protected since time immemorial. We honor the First Peoples, acknowledge their vibrant cultures, and commit ourselves to learning from their wisdom in our journey to promote justice, equity, and mutual understanding. We pledge to stand alongside these communities in acknowledging past injustices and working towards a future that respects and celebrates the diverse heritage of this land. Now, if you'd all please stand and join me in the flag salute.
Of the United
Brings us to agenda approval. Unless there are any objections, the agenda will stand approved. Hearing no objections, the agenda is approved. Mr. City Manager, where is the fun?
The fun happened last week when it snowed. I love it when it snows. I think maybe it's because I'm still a kid, I don't know, but I absolutely love it when it snows. And our public works crew, they were out plowing the snows, working 12-hour shifts, middle of the night last week, and they did a great job taking care of our roads and getting the snow off as quickly as possible. But they took some pictures while they were out and about, and just look how beautiful it is in Kenmore. Can you go back to the previous slide? Look at that. Look at Tlaloc Park and Log Boom Park. Snow has a really nice, beautiful touch on things. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see ball field at Morelands, and yeah, pretty gorgeous. And then look at this. So this was taken on a windshield. This picture was taken on the windshield of one of our trucks. What can you see something? Can you look at that? Isn't that amazing? Just beautiful. So that's where the fun was.
Thank you for that. It was a fun couple of days there. Next on our agenda is public comments. We want to welcome folks to the council's meeting. Please address your comments to the mayor and the council. Folks will have 3 minutes to speak unless there are more than 20 speakers, and I'll get reduced down to 2 minutes. The clerk will call your name when it is your turn. To make sure that every person feels welcome and safe here, please refrain from booing, clapping, heckling, yelling, or other interruptions. We also ask that folks do not speak on ballot measures that are being voted on currently. The meeting is recorded for transparency. Thank you for being here and sharing your input respectfully. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 12 guests on site wishing to speak and 3 waiting online. We'll take the first in this order. The first 5, Edward LaSalle, Nathan McDonald, Steve Holmes, Jennifer Anderson, and Jeff Chisholm. Please approach the podium. Thank you.
Edward LaSalle, Kenmore. Hi. Dear City Council, I know you'll be going over the recruitment process options for the city manager's replacement tonight. And before you do, I'm here today to express my strongest support for Stephanie Lukash as a new city manager. On a personal level, I've witnessed her dedication to the city too many times to count as she presented carefully researched and thought out guidance and ideas to you, Council, on multiple topics. Each time, she demonstrated poise, calm, and care for the subject at hand and for the city. It'd be presumptuous of me to tell you how well she seems to work with the rest of the city staff or how she manages to mix friendly diplomacy with strong convictions, since you already interact with her way more than I do. And you already know she has a boxer, so she has to be a wonderful person. More seriously, though, as my expertise in matters of what makes a good city manager is pretty irrelevant, it's more valuable to look at her achievements and peer recognition. Having Mrs. Lukash as our city manager would not only mean having a smooth transition with someone who's been Rob's right hand for the almost last 4 years, but also a caring, passionate leader who is also the vice president of our regional crisis response agency, the outstanding assistant city manager of the year for 2023 across all of Washington state, awarded the National 2024 Leadership Trailblazer Award for the League of Women in Government, and was inducted in the city's League of Women of Government Hall of Fame, the immediate past president of the Washington City County Management Association, representing Washington State on the committee to plan the International City County Management Association 2025 conference, a member of the board of directors of the Association of Washington Cities, vice chair of the Archives, Libraries, and Legacy Foundation at the Washington Secretary of State, and affiliate professor at UW teaching local government at the University School of Public Policy. Oh, I almost forgot. Under her co-leadership, our city won a 2022 Municipal Excellence Award from the Association of Washington Cities as the best ARPA program in the state. The only issues I can find with Mrs. Lukash being our next city manager is how underachieving it makes me feel personally, but I guess I can live with that if it means continuing to have the stellar leadership our city deserves. I know very deeply she has possibly the biggest shoes to fill, but I believe we might just realize that those shoes also happen to be her exact size. Thank you.
Good evening. Nathan McDonald, Kenmore citizen. I would like to share a few quotes about leadership from some of America's most famous leaders. From John F. Kennedy, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. From Rosalind Carter, a leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. From John C. Maxwell, leadership is not about titles, positions, or flowcharts. It is about one life influencing another. And finally, from Michael Jordan, earn your leadership every day. I submit that a common thread permeates each of these quotes. They all require a leader to be present, to be effective. Not just present by the 21st century conveniences of a cell phone call, a text message, or a Zoom meeting, and not just present in this great city during business hours, Monday through Friday. A true leader leads from the front and has some skin in the game. It is crucial that the chief executive tasked with managing our city lives and interacts with Kenmore every day, including on evenings and weekends. This is the only way one can be truly connected with the community they are charged with managerial oversight of. Whoever the next Kenmore city manager is, their goal should be to earn their leadership every single day and live among us while they strive to meet this standard. Such a requirement is simple common sense. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's good to see you all. My name is Steve Holmes. I'm a resident of Bothell, but a Kenmore business owner. Why am I in Kenmore with 2 businesses and 2 locations? Well, I'm on my 3rd year of being chair of the Kenmore Business Alliance, and the KBA is growing because of all the local businesses that we have brought in. How do we do that? Well, with a group of all 40 of us that show up, not to mention a fantastic deputy city manager that helps guide it, along with the fantastic staff that you have here. So yeah, why is Why am I here and have two locations and one in Bothell? It's pretty obvious. You guys are doing good work. You got a good staff. Where's the kindness in Kenmore? Gosh, it's all around. It's here. It works. I'm sorry to hear that the city manager is leaving, Rob Carlinci. He has done such a fantastic job. And he made Kenmore better when he found it. He really got things done. But I'm here to say, I hope the council considers, and better yet, hires Stephanie Lukash for city manager. Wow, what a perfect replacement. Taking Rob's job. I've seen her work hard and bring great ideas and bring new businesses to Kenmore and much, much more. I would need a lot of extra time to go through it all. Stephanie is welcoming, highly knowledgeable. Sharing her knowledge and expertise and bringing women into government, help coaching them. That's phenomenal. I've noticed her coworkers in the city who look up to her, because I see many meetings and I see the look on her faces. And they look up to her. She's a mentor for many, including myself. And so many local businesses. I like her thinking because it's kind of like mine. Sometimes she thinks out of the box.
Thank you.
Which brings things together.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Your time is up.
Thank you, and I hope you consider her.
Jennifer Anderson, Jeff Chisholm, Suzanne Greathouse, and David Gudgel.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I am here to tell you about some shocking news. All the candlesticks are still in place on 68th and 170th. I know. It's almost like the big trucks learn how to turn the corner without running them over. It's shocking. I'm shocked. Anyway, I know, but on all seriousness, obviously, I always come up here and talk to you about this, but thank you so much for taking the time and the effort to invest in the proper infrastructure for keeping that bike lane protected. I also wanted to say, Rob, we're going to miss you. Thank you so much. It's not often you can say that the city manager rode out of St. Ed's with you on his bike. Treasured memory right there after a concert at St. Ed's. I wish you all the best, and I am very excited to see who might step into your shoes. Maybe someone sitting over there. She'll be lovely. And the final thing I wanted to bring to your attention tonight actually is something that the city of Kirkland just discussed and implemented. But I have noticed that on some of our job applications, job postings, one of the requirements for jobs that may or may not actually require driving is that the employee would have to have a valid Washington driver's license. And we're actually excluding a lot of people who might qualify for a job with that requirement. There are people who cannot drive for legal reasons, either a disability or a personal choice or a medical reason that may still otherwise be qualified for that job. And I would encourage you to look at that. Obviously, like a public work person would probably need to drive, but there are, like, for example, there's an intern position right now that doesn't look like it needs to drive at all that has that requirement. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The city of Kirkland actually just did away with requiring that for any position that did not actually need to use a car to perform their job. All right, thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Jeff Chisholm, Kenmore. I will second everything people have said about what a nice person Stephanie Lukash is. She clearly has all of the administrative and background skills to be city manager, but she shouldn't be ours. for the simple reason of her role in the Plymouth housing matter. We don't know everything that went on behind the scenes, but we know what happened in the public record. Stephanie Lukash was put in charge of bringing home the project that was awarded to Plymouth Housing to provide 100 units of residence for Kenmores, seniors, and veterans. That was in June of 2023. We heard not one word about any change in that until after the election, no coincidence, on November 27, when she first advised the council that this would not be for Kenmore residents, seniors, or veterans. It would require people that were currently homeless with a disability. Kenmore maybe had 0 to 3 homeless people, so this was for Seattle. First notice to the council and to the public, 18 months later, 2 weeks before the final vote. And even then, she misrepresented to all of us what the standard for entrance was. She told us in writing that this was going to be a low barrier. And when Council Member Kugler wrote her a letter saying, I don't know what that term means, can you explain what low barrier means? Lukash gave everyone on the night of the vote, December 11, a written statement. Once somebody has experienced homelessness, they're often shut out of housing by barriers like rental history requirements, credit checks, and upfront security deposits. She knew that wasn't the standard. The standard was no barrier, meaning that they had to have a disability, which meant alcohol, drug abuse, mental illness. She withheld that from the citizens. She withheld it from the council. I think that disqualifies her. It's the opposite of transparency. It undermines the faith in the government. And so when you go to the public and say, trust us, we're going to put out levies for 50, 80 million, $100 million, trust us to spend it wisely. The other reason I don't think she's an appropriate candidate is the city manager should live in Kenmore. And I think that's the most benign explanation of why she didn't bring to everyone's attention the change in Plymouth housing. She lives in Ballard. She deals with homelessness every day. Maybe she just thought
Thank you.
everybody here would be good with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chisholm. Your time is up. Suzanne Greathouse is here as a guest and not as a speaker, so we will move on to David Gudgel, Sandra Lee, Jason Pastor, Carl Michaelman, and Lori Sperry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I want to thank Rob Carlinzi. Rob, you've been a friend and a colleague and a partner, and we'll certainly miss you. And just want to also thank you for doing something that's over the top, which is developing someone to step into your shoes. That sort of development is often overlooked and is very much appreciated in a situation like this when we have a vacancy of such importance. There's been a lot already presented about Stephanie's resume and her accomplishments, and I just want to speak about my personal experience with her. And, you know, she was one of the first people that I encountered, or first of all, I guess I forgot to introduce myself. I'm David Gudgel, a resident and also president of Kenmore Era, representing both. And Stephanie was one of the first people when I took that role to introduce herself and to take the time to stop in and tell me what she was up to, and also ask me what is important to us and how she could help. I ended up accompanying Stephanie on a mission to Washington, D.C., and saw her in action. And this person that I originally encountered and thought, how can anybody be that bubbly 24 hours a day? I saw that that energy was real. And I saw in the way that she represented this community and its initiatives and its needs to those folks on Capitol Hill. And it was with enthusiasm and professionalism. It wasn't long after that Stephanie said, you know, we should be getting together more often. And we've made a habit of that, getting together at least once a month for some coffee conversation to bounce ideas off of each other. And she encouraged me to be part of the Kenmore Business Alliance Association. And that's where I really saw her shine. Stephanie represents you and the city to the business community in a way that I don't think is at all common. She reaches out to people, she listens, she tries to understand the issues that are present, and she connects. She is constantly bringing people in from the city, other departments to say, hey, business community, these people are here to assist you. This is what we can do for you. And through that sort of interaction and that transparency and the willingness to partner, we've seen some real growth in the Kenmore Business Alliance. I think Steve said that we have over 40 people attending once a month, which is amazing. And that is, there's energy there. And I was so enthused when I saw her, we were talking about the advantages of being part of that, hearing people say the number one advantage is having this connection with the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Sandra Lee, and I am the Executive Director of the Bothell Kenmore Chamber. As the Executive Director, I want to take a moment to recognize on behalf of the Chamber and the Chamber Board to thank Rob for his leadership and his dedication to the Chamber as City Manager. His steady guidance and commitment has helped shape our community and made a difference for our small businesses across Bothell and Kenmore. Rob's contributions have already and have had quite an impact. When I started a year ago, that's all I heard about was how great Rob and his influence in our community was. I also today want to acknowledge that his staff and their leadership have really affected and influenced the chamber as well. And it's that consistency and continuity across the culture of the Kenmore staff that I think is so important. And their leadership has been collaborative and engaged with the stakeholders, all the businesses that show up at KBA, but also across both cities. And I think having that influence that Kenmore does have because of that positive communication is crucial. It gives our small businesses confidence in the current staff in Kenmore's commitment, and the staff listens to us and leads professionally and is very positive. I think that the dedication and impact that Rob has had on the community is very clear, just even from the past things that people have said. And I think that looking forward to seeing that positive growth and contribution with the current staff would make the KBA and the chamber very happy. Thank you.
I apologize. Could we get your city of residence for the record, please?
What?
Could we get your city of residence for the record, please?
Oh, I live in Bothell.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, thank you very much for letting me be here. My name is Jason Park-Arone, Copperworks Distilling. This is the first time I've had a chance to vote in Kenmore. I did that tonight. I'm super excited. So I've been a resident here for 6 months. Part of the reason that I became a resident is because of you guys. When I lived in West Seattle for 25 years, I loved the small community, but when I came up here, I recognized a real community. And it's because you all show up. You all show up to the places that we want to be, like whether it's my place or 192, my parking lot partner, or just in town at these events. I've always felt the connection. Well, that's when I joined KBA 2 years ago. I met Steve and I joined the Kenmore Business Alliance. I wasn't even a resident here, but I knew I was going to open a business here. And I suddenly discovered what a small town can do. And guess who kept showing up? Stephanie kept showing up. And when she showed up, she brought joy, she brought information, she brought connection to the community, and she showed us what is possible. Guess what? We can ask for some business licensing, and what we do with that money is so much more important than the $10 that it costs a small business to pay. And getting the information was even more important than the money. I just feel like we've got this visionary And I am so looking forward to seeing Stephanie being able to be the big shoe replacement for Rob. So I want to say thank you, and I hope that you make that choice. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Carl Michelman, Lori Sperry, and Juliana Pooley, please.
Hi, Council. It's been a while. I'm Carl Michelman. I live in Briar. It's good to see you all. I just came just to thank Rob. Rob and I have done a lot with the city. If it wasn't for Rob's direction in the older councils, I think the direction would not have been grown, but what happened was the council listened to him finally. Because you know me, I'm a thorn in everyone's side. And when it's positive, it's good. And when it's negative, it's not. But Rob got this city going. Rob and I started the Kenmore Business Alliance. I was knocking on doors, and you can hear from everybody on the Kenmore Business Alliance how it's grown, which is wonderful. But I want to thank you. You will be missed. And when it comes to the shoes in replacing you, I just would say if Stephanie is your person, fine. However, I still think we need to follow the rules, and she needs to live here. And I also think that we need to do a recruitment before you make the decision. It's always easier to go ahead and just say, here, we're going to take her position of taking her. You know, Stephanie has a lot of accolades, and congratulations to that. But I think we still need to focus on looking, and then if the decision is decision, it's fine. But I also still think that when it comes to the rules of living here, that should be happening. So with that, I want to thank you all, and I'll be back. Okay? Thanks, Rob.
Evening. Everybody awake? Those executive sessions are always so much fun, huh? So, I'm Lori Sperry. I live in Kenmore, and I served on the Kenmore City Council for 12 years. And I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly honor Rob Carlinzi for his 13 years of service to Kenmore and congratulate him on his new position as city manager of Moses Lake. I first met Rob when I interviewed him for the city manager position. The city council had conducted a nationwide search with over 100 applicants. I read all the resumes. During the final interviews, the question I asked was, how do you see the future of Kenmore? Kind of a vision question. What are some of the opportunities? As I mentioned, we did a nationwide search. So some of the applicants barely knew the basic geography of Kenmore. But when I asked Rob, he handed me an 8 to 10 page report he had researched and written. It even had pictures. Clearly, he had done his homework. It was a very good report, too. And so that's when he went to the top of my list. Kind of like you knew he was the one. So one of the first things I noticed when Rob began as city manager was the change in the staff. It was like they came alive and just blossomed. I think this speaks to Rob's ability to inspire and empower the city staff. Also, he brought new ideas to Kenmore about connecting citizens to the waterfront. And that's how we got the rowing program and the boathouse. And before that, we had just been focused on Lake Point, but because Rob had worked at Gig Harbor, he knew about all these programs. So I thought, okay, so I think that was a win. Another one of Rob's ideas was the hangar building. And that's been such a home run for the community. It's just really, I'm just so grateful that we were able to make that happen. Two of Rob's phrases he used often when I worked with him were, the first one was relentless incrementalism, and the second one was upward trajectory of becoming. I was going to ask if you'd heard those, but everybody's nodding, so they're very consistent. To me, the relentless incrementalism referred to the little improvements that add up over time. And of course, we see that everywhere. And to me, the relentless part really speaks of Rob's willingness to work very hard and not give up even when things are difficult. I'm still amazed at what you all have done, Rob and the team, with the Tiwa Adis Park. I mean, I know that took a lot to get through all the negotiations and the regulatory for that. So the upward trajectory of becoming is basically the exponential curve where at the beginning, things just kind of go not very up and then you get the upward. And he would always use this, you would always use this in your like state of the city. And I'd been on the council for a while at that time and I would sit there and I would go, okay, we've been at this part, we're over here. Oh, it's coming, it's coming
Thank
like
you.
that. And it was such an encouragement. And
Thank
just
you,
think,
Ms. Sperry.
gonna have to get a new curve. Anyway, congratulations. Thank you.
Juliana Pooley, and then we'll move on to our online guests.
Juliana Pooley, Kenmore. I'd also like to start with a thank you to Rob Carlindsey for his years of service as Kenmore City Manager. It's been a joy getting to know you, Rob, and our city is better because of your generous leadership. Moving forward for the city, I hope that the City Council prioritizing securing us an educated, qualified city manager that shares Kenmore's values and vision. I've already emailed you, but tonight I want to voice my opinion that Kenmore residency should not be a deciding factor between qualified candidates. I want to use measurable criteria, not city residents, to determine their investment in our city. Of course, we all want a city manager that's invested and loves Kenmore. None of us want someone who clocks out at 8:55. For example, will they stay late on Monday night city council meetings? Will they celebrate and enjoy our holiday celebrations and farmers markets? Will they know our city residents by name and fight for our city council priorities? These things can be measured and written down, and we should be using measurable, transparent criteria, not zip code, to be determining who is best. It feels elitist and exclusionary to limit the search to candidates living or willing to live in Kenmore, especially if they've already local to the region and have proven they are an easy commuting distance away. I also work in public service, and if my dream job was denied to me simply because I wanted to keep my children in North Shore School District and continue to live by my aging parents and not move cities, I would be appalled. There are so many reasons we love where we live. And I will forever champion housing choice and do not believe we should require relocation for candidates that live nearby. I'm not scared of my neighbors in Bothell, Ballard, Seattle, or Kirkland. I love learning and cross-collaborating with people in different neighborhoods. I think we are a better city when we stop viewing our city limits as the enemy line that we should not cross. I also urge the council to focus and prioritize criteria that is essential to performing the function of city manager, education and experience. It's more important to select a city manager that shares our values than one that shares our zip codes. And finally, I'm grateful for what Stephanie Lukash and Rob Carlindsey have already invested in our city, and I hope that Stephanie gets the chance to continue to lead us. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our online guests. We had 3 guests registered to speak: Stacy Valenzuela, followed by Patrick O'Brien and Dale Walker. Stacy Valenzuela, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Stacy Valenzuela, Kenmore. We would like to see action to match priorities, no wasted funding, and we need transparency. A developer states they would like to build 175 units and still save trees, is sent back to remove trees. We came forward to support Climate Commitment Act, Climate Action Plan, Climate Emergency. Were all these claims just a facade for the city to qualify for state funding that will not support actions? Saving the tree canopy is our priority. Planting seedlings is part of the equation, but we'll all be long dead before those trees reach effective potential to absorb the carbon, cement particulate, and the asphalt emissions. We heard Lake City partners confirm the extremely low monthly incomes of my fixed income neighbors and that seniors are currently the highest number of those adding to homelessness. This is corporate investment evictions for profits. Our most vulnerable are being priced out into homelessness, yet funding of $170,000 annually in the city budget is designated for employee fund. How much is designated to help our seniors stay in their houses? Yes, I am concerned and disappointed. Hear our cries. Stop the continued wasted of funding for wants, a few clubs, a few residents, and the absorbent cost of the public works facility. Excluding the majority of our residents should be inclusion of a process allowing voting of priority of where these tax dollars funding is spent. We have been requesting full disclosure and inclusion in the process, transparency prior to decisions. We need your actions to represent the priorities of our residents, environmental protection, and affordable housing to our lowest incomes, which show the highest needs, 0 to 30%. These are our neighbors being priced out continually, living homeless, in cars, encampments, on couches. I look forward to the due process application and selection of a new city manager by the rules, by the correct process that was already agreed upon. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you. Now I'm looking for Patrick O'Brien and Dale Walker, and I do not see them online with us. And so that concludes our speakers list.
All right, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Yes, Councilmember Sassen.
We've received a request to have E, the resolution reaffirming the city of Kenmore as a safe, inclusive, and welcoming city for all people, read aloud, as the DEIA committee has put quite a bit of energy into updating it.
Okay, so you'd like
That's
to
possible?
remove E and we can read that and then approve it afterwards? Okay. First, though, I need a motion then to approve the consent agenda minus item
moved.
E.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda minus item E is adopted unanimously. Brings us to item E. Councilmember Sassen, did you want to read it, or would you like me to read it? Okay.
And Your Honor, we also have Garrett Oppenheim, who crafted that resolution, ready to speak to it if you wish.
Perhaps Garrett would like to read it.
Garrett, would you like to speak to it briefly? Sure, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a quick few remarks about it. So back in 2017, the City Council adopted a resolution to affirm the City of Kenmore as safe, inclusive, and welcoming to all people. This 2025 version is similar. It just adds some affirmative steps the council's taken in the last 8 years to implement this commitment. These include the adoption of a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility policy and strategic plan, the creation of the DEIA Advisory Committee, which is composed of volunteer experts in the field who live or work in the city of Kenmore, the authorization to expend over $300,000 in our American Rescue Plan Act funds for homelessness outreach, mental health counseling, and other human services programs, and a commitment to developing affordable housing within the city. Hatred, discrimination, harassment, and behaviors that create fear, isolation, intimidation have no home here. And this resolution is meant to show that despite recent activity at the federal level that's been somewhat hostile to DEI, City of Kenmore will not waver from its values with regard to the dignity of every person and their constitutional and civil rights.
All right, Councilmember Sassen, would you like to read the resolution? Thank you, Garrett.
City of Kenmore, Washington, Resolution 25426. Resolution of the City Council of Kenmore, Washington, reaffirming the City of Kenmore as a safe, inclusive, and welcoming city for all people. Whereas Kenmore's vision statement describes the city as a place that residents, business, and visitors find welcoming and inclusive, with courteous people, that offers a high quality of life to live, raise children, shop, work, recreate, and socialize. And whereas Kenmore budgets and allocates significant resources to ensure a safe and secure community that fosters a feeling of personal safety and facilitates a culture that values and supports a diverse population. And whereas the City of Kenmore reaffirms that it has been and will continue to be committed to supporting the safety, health, and welfare of all who reside, work, or visit Kenmore without discrimination. And whereas Kenmore believes in the dignity, equality, and constitutional and civil rights of all people and will not tolerate discrimination, harassment, or any other behavior that creates fear, isolation, or intimidation. And whereas Kenmore's vibrancy and sense of community are stronger for our diversity and shared values of acceptance and respect. And whereas the Kenmore City Council supports these principles and strives to reflect them in their actions as Kenmore's elected leaders. And whereas the Kenmore City Council adopted a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility policy in November 2022 and a DEIA strategic plan and roadmap in September 2023. And staff have been implementing them ever since. And whereas the City of Kenmore employs a DEIA coordinator to work with each city department to implement their obligations under the DEIA strategic plan and to report annually to City Council as to the progress being made. And whereas the Kenmore City Council authorized the expenditure of over $300,000 of its American Rescue Plan funds for programming aimed to support human services for disadvantaged communities, including the unhoused residents of the city and those suffering from mental and behavioral health maladies that may have been caused or exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the city manager consults with the DEIA advisory committee composed of experts in the field of DEIA who either live or work in the city. And whereas the City of Kenmore purchased property near City Hall and is committed to working with a developer toward the construction of affordable housing on the site for both rent and purchase. And whereas the City of Kenmore always remains open to learning about what more it can do and ways in which it can improve with regard to being a safe, inclusive, and welcoming place for all. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Kenmore, Washington does hereby resolve as follows. The City Council adopts the recitals set forth above, which reaffirm Kenmore as a safe, inclusive, and welcoming city for all people, passed by the City Council at a meeting thereof on the 10th day of February, 2025. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course, and with that, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt proposed resolution 25426, reaffirming the City of Kenmore as a safe, inclusive, and welcoming city for all people.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The resolution is adopted unanimously. That brings us to presentations. First off, recognizing Suzanne Greathouse for her years of dedication as Kenmore Heritage Society's president, and introduce Mariela Alejandrino, Kenmore Heritage Society's new president, presented by Deputy City Manager Stephanie Lukash.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, I am delighted, honored, and privileged to speak with you tonight about an incredibly special member of our community. This person has made countless contributions that have helped make Kenmore a thriving community where all people love where they live. She's a co-creator, a leader, a visionary who brings heart and compassion to her work. Her name is Suzanne Greathouse. Suzanne has been actively engaged in Kenmore and North King County work for decades. She is someone who consistently looks for opportunities to make a contribution. Suzanne has served in multiple impactful leadership positions. She's been an Evergreen Health Board of Commissioner, Evergreen Health Foundation Board of Trustee. She's been the president of the Kenmore Heritage Society. She has served on the city's planning commission. She's been a fire district commissioner, and she's also been a North Shore Utility District commissioner. She's an active member of the Kenmore Business Alliance and is engaged with the Kenmore Senior Center and has been involved in the farmers market in Kenmore. She was instrumental in the city's efforts to bring the Hank Herron mascot here home to us and also has been a key leader in the city's first Oktoberfest. This past year, Suzanne and I collaborated on a new annual award to be given to a Kenmore business owner. She and I brainstormed the idea and presented it to a local business owner at the annual McMaster Award celebration last spring. I look forward to recognizing another business owner this year. This effort, to me, exemplifies who Suzanne is. She's connected to community and always looking for a way to acknowledge others. Suzanne is a dedicated and committed partner who is a joy to work with and is always full of new and innovative ideas. As Suzanne transitions out of her role as president of the Kenmore Heritage Society and the city is introduced to the new Kenmore Heritage Society president, Marilla Alejandrino, we want to present this award to Suzanne, and the inscription on the award reads, "Thank you for all that you have done for the city of Kenmore. Your contributions and legacy in our community are timeless. We appreciate you." And it's a clock, so the timeless has a double meaning. So I would like to present this to Suzanne on behalf of the City Council and the city and thank Suzanne for her many contributions as she exits, but you can see she's still very busy and very involved, but as she exits her role as president of the Heritage Society.
So I really need to thank all of you for letting me play in your playground here. First of all, Rob, you've been a great supporter of mine, and I really appreciate that. In particular, there are several of my projects that were really close to my heart. One was the Veterans Memorial Bench out here, which Rob asked me to work with the team, and we were able to get a group of veterans to actually come up with the plan. It wasn't something that we dictated or the city dictated. And so that's something that's been really great about Rob as a partner is doing that. I need to thank the council because you guys are the ones who got me in the door initially. After one of your retreats, I was reading over all of the documentation and it mentioned that one of your group was wondering about the name Squires Landing on the park. And reached out to me and asked if I would do some research. And so I did that and found out that we probably needed to rename the park. And then you also allowed me to engage the appropriate individuals. So the Hibald Center, the Burke, and so forth. And I brought an elder down from Hibald. And so we did everything that was right. And that has really been great in terms of working with you, is you don't cut corners and you're pretty good with me even when I try to be a little difficult or push what I think is the appropriate thing. You always support me on that. So that's been really great. The staff has also been wonderful. And then Stephanie mentioned the KBA. And I have to tell you that initially when I got involved with the KBA, I thought this is kind of a snoozer. And then Stephanie became involved and we started doing strategic planning. And once we had a plan, we were able to get everyone together and move forward. And so I really appreciated that quite a bit. The other thing that I'm really excited about is Hank the Heron. And I can't end my little thank you here without also putting in a plug for the Oktoberfest. I have a lederhosen for Hank. So this has a 62-inch waist. And I was able to talk one of your staff into measuring Hank's waist. And I think these will fit. If they don't, I can take out a needle and thread and we can put some elastic in here. So thank you all. And also the community has been very supportive. If no one came to our events, I probably wouldn't be standing here. So thank you all. And then I want to introduce Morella. So she's been active in our community for quite some time. She's been with the Heritage Society since 2018, and I know she'll do a fantastic job, and I'll let her say a few words.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. You're going to be a tough act to follow as always, but I just want everyone to know how much we appreciate your leadership, your vision, and how you've grown Kenmore Heritage Society over the years. And personally, I just want to thank you for all that you've done for me, and I value probably most our friendship. So thank you so much for that. A little bit about me. I've been in Kenmore for many, many years. I was actually born and raised in Ballard. But my husband has been in Kenmore since 1976 and is a 1983 Inglemoor grad. And so we moved here many years ago with my 3 kids. My two of my 3 boys graduated from Inglemoor as well. So I've been active in the community for many, many years on all the PTAs. I was an ambassador for the North Shore School Foundation for many years. And I was also involved with the Arts of Kenmore. And I enjoyed the Heritage Society in 2018. And I'm honored to serve as the new president of the Kenmore Heritage Society and to continue our mission of celebrating and preserving our community's rich history. We remain committed to offering programs and events that will connect Kenmore residents to the past, present, and future. And in addition, we're proud to partner with the City of Kenmore on a variety of community events that bring people together and highlight our shared history. Thanks.
If you could join us over by the flags really quickly, Suzanne and Mariella, that'd be great. All right, next we have another presentation. We're going to recognize our Community Development Director, Debbie Bent, who received the Meyer Wolf Award for Excellence in Planning, presented by Principal Planner Todd Hall.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening about a very special and, shall I say, one-of-a-kind city employee. And I'm, of course, talking about one of our very first and longest-serving employees. That, of course, is none other than Community Development Director Debbie Bent. Every October, the Washington State chapter of the American Planning Association holds its annual conference. Each year, there's an opportunity to nominate individuals for various service awards. I approached Rob and Stephanie last summer about nominating Debbie, and of course they said absolutely. So I began Operation Nominate Debbie with the help of Rob and Shannon Tippeline, who's the Community Development Director, Development Administrative Specialist. And I submitted all the required materials and that was considered by the Washington APA president and the board, and of course Debbie won. So Debbie was honored with the Meyer Wolf Award by the APA, which is the American Planning Association's Washington chapter. And this distinguished award is presented to individuals who've demonstrated an exceptional dedication to the field of urban planning in Washington State and have made a lasting impact on their communities. And without question, Debbie's career exemplifies this commitment. Here's a few highlights that I'd like to share. Debbie's been a leader in the planning field for more than 30 years. Over 27 of them have been in the state of Washington, and 26 of those have been right here in the city of Kenmore. As I mentioned earlier, Debbie was one of the very first city employees hired when the city incorporated back on August 31st, 1998. For the past 18 years, she served as the city's community development director, guiding numerous planning initiatives that have transformed Kenmore into the vibrant community that it is today. Some of those planning initiatives include being the lead on the city's first comp plan way back in 2001, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan in 2003, the first Shoreline Master Plan, Critical Areas Ordinance in 2003, and she's led several comp plan updates and 2 pros plans since that time. She's set up the planning and permitting departments right when the city changed over hands from King County to the city back in 1998. And she was instrumental in adopting the city's first downtown plan in 2003, which you all know now we're getting to the point we need to look at that again. She streamlined the zoning and the land use code, which was originally King County code when the city was not quite formed yet. Debbie was a key driver for the first downtown plan, like I mentioned, and the first environmental sustainability plan in 2010. And she's been a leader in the Imagine Kenmore planning process in 2015. And this shaped the water walkways and waterways project, which include the Kenmore waterfront, recent development on the Log Boom Park, Toloquides Park, and she also oversaw the rhododendron waterfront and open space access project in the Kenmore Boathouse. Lastly, she's led efforts in tenant protection ordinances and many initiatives on our mobile home communities and safeguarding approximately 250 mobile homes in our 6 parks in the community. Not only that, but Debbie's been an executive board member for many years on ARCH, which is the Regional Coalition of Housing. She's an advocate for affordable housing solutions in and outside of Kenmore. She's supported Bastyr University in their master planning efforts over the years, developed the city's housing strategy plan, and has collaborated with other cities on the comprehensive emergency management and hazard mitigation plan. So, Mr. Mayor and City Council, on behalf of the City of Kenmore staff, it's my honor to congratulate Debbie on this well-deserved recognition for all of her years of service and dedication, not only in urban planning, but also to the City of Kenmore. Thank you.
When I heard this was on tonight's agenda and I knew that Todd was doing this, I said 3 sentences, please. So I am honored to have received this award, and especially in front of my colleagues at the Planning Association last October, and Rob attended that event also, which made it also more special to me. I'm proud to be a professional planner. I'm also proud to be a public servant and serving the Kenmore community over the years. It's been my honor and pleasure to have worked on so many projects. But for that success, it means I've had the privilege of working with an amazing city team, working alongside the city council and prior city council members, as well as the Kenmore community. So I look forward to many more years of working with the Kenmore community and helping create and implement the vision to make Kenmore such a special place to live, work, and play. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have a King County update presented by King County Councilmember Rod Dembowski. Councilmember Dembowski here has represented Kenmore since he began serving. Yeah, right up there, yeah. He's been representing Kenmore since he joined the county council in 2013. Councilmember Dembowski has helped, supported, and partnered with the city of Kenmore in many ways over the years. Here are a few examples: the Sammamish River Master Plan, which is currently being developed, mid grants to help fund the co-responder program since its inception. Now that is RACER. He helped get $600,000 grant for the Kenmore Boathouse. Many conservation futures grants, most notably and recently $7.5 million for Lake Point. Parks and Trails levy funding to help with our walkways and waterways projects, Aquatic Center siting study, Northland Community Center feasibility study funding, along with all sorts of things. We have a lot of topics we could talk about here, but I'll turn it over to you, Councilmember Dembowski, and then we can go from there. Welcome.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mayor Herbig. It's a privilege to be here. It feels like I was just here a few months ago doing one of these on a more informal basis. If it would be okay, I would like to just add my congratulations and appreciation to Suzanne Greathouse. I don't think it was mentioned in her long list of accomplishments, but a few years ago, we were in, well, I'll say, is real trouble over at the North Shore Senior Center. The voters 20 years before, Councilmember Marshall remembers this, had approved a bond to build it, but we had no money to maintain it. And we put a levy on the ballot, and Suzanne not only wrote the voters pamphlet statement for it, if I recall correctly, but led efforts to get it passed. And it has been transformative in terms of making an investment in maintaining the senior center and making sure that its useful life has been extended for decades. And I honestly don't believe that it would have happened without her leadership. So let me extend that additional gratitude. It's a privilege to represent Kenmore. My district, District 1, is about 250,000 people, as you know, but by way of background, it includes Northeast Seattle, starting at about 65th Street. That's the Magnuson Park, Ravenna area, going north through Wedgwood, Lake City. It jumps over and picks up a little Holler Lake west of I-5 over to 99. And then all the communities of Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, most of Bothell, and then North Kirkland, Finn Hill down to Juanita. Kenmore is really the jewel in the crown of my district, and it's really a privilege to work alongside you. I am a Dolly Parton fan, and maybe her famous song and my favorite one is Coat of Many Colors, but the last one she did with Kenny Rogers, her off partner, was a song called You Can't Make Old Friends. And maybe at the end here, I could share a few words about my old friend now, having worked together for 12 years, Rob Carlinzi. It's kind of a sad night to see him going. I know we have a lot to talk about, and maybe it would be fair to just go free form. That would be up to you. I'll just say at the county, looking ahead this year, we've completed our reorganization. For a number of years, I chaired what's called our Transportation, Economy, and Environment Committee. I've handed that off, and I've been asked to chair our Budget and Fiscal Management Committee just in time to deal with our $150 million general fund shortfall. I feel like for those of you that remember the Life cereal ads with Mikey, that he'll eat anything, I think my colleagues, give it to Rod, he'll eat anything. But that is in, I think, our general fund. I know that the city of Kenmore has undertaken a very strategic approach with your Financial Sustainability Advisory Committee and the plan you adopted for your budget, where you face similar challenges in terms of structural funding deficits. And I think you can relate to the challenges we have. That matters to Kenmore, one, because every Kenmore resident is a King County resident, but we're your partner in delivering a lot of services. Maybe foremost is the contract for police services with our sheriff's office. The targeted reduction from our budget office for the sheriff's office is the biggest one at $30 million because just delivering those services is general fund based and it has a real impact. That one, and this is being driven, of course, by the 1% cap plus new construction on property taxes, which is our main source of revenue. We don't have a B&O tax. We don't have a utility tax. That's just not something that counties have. Councilmember Srebnick is familiar with that as a former longtime county employee. Looking ahead here, this year we've got some ballot measures coming. They're all renewals. The first one coming up in April is what we call our APHIS levy. It's about 2 3/4 cents per thousand. APHIS is Automated Fingerprint Identification System. All of your officers have this capability in the field to take fingerprints, both latent and direct from folks they're arresting to process, put them into the system. That's been funded since the late 80s by a special levy. The rates actually come down, and we expect and hope that that'll be renewed. In August, I think we'll talk about this. We have renewal of our parks levy that occurs every 6 years. And then in November, we have renewal of our EMS levy. That's Medic One. Folks know that King County is, if you're going to have one, the best place in the world to have a heart attack. We have survival rates approaching 60%. That compares to, in some cities, even in America, in the teens. Because Dr. Kopus in 1971 had this idea that we could treat people in the field, get them the care they need, keep them alive. And that's worked, and that's our Medic One system. Those are some of the big issues that you'll see on the ballot coming forward this year, and I'm happy to talk to you about more in detail.
Any questions for, or thoughts for Councilmember Dombowski while we have them? We're going to be, I mean, we really appreciate the $7.5 million that you got of Conservation Futures grants for our possible work at Lake Point. Could we talk a little bit about the possibility of maybe leveraging the upcoming Parks and Trails levy to possibly supplement some of that?
Sure. Tomorrow, I mentioned the Parks levy. Tomorrow, the county executive is going to announce his proposal. I got a preview of it today. I don't think it's probably fair to jump his announcement, but I would just say my goal in this, the North End puts a lot of money into this, and it really is our regional system. So a lot of those are parks and regional trails that aren't necessarily locally serving. The closest regional park we have is Big Fin Hill Park, which the county owns and manages just across your border. Of course, through the city is the Burke-Gilman Trail. It's kind of a regional trail connecting to the Spanish River Trail and others. So we'll be doing some investments there. There is, I think you'll see some money for culvert replacement on our system. That's a big challenge we're facing. I know the city is working on a culvert replacement project across 522, the Chettle, is it? I think it's tributary number 56. And there may be an opportunity, since that creek crosses the Burke-Gilman Trail, to partner with you. That's something I'm interested in working on. We've got some work to do, I would say, after this briefing to make sure that Kenmore's needs and the North End's needs are reflected. I think we'll have some success on that. It will be referred to my committee, and I'll be working on working that proposal through there. Lake Point is maybe my #1 priority in all of my district. I just think it's a tremendous opportunity for a forever project. And City Manager Carlinzi and this council have really, over years, led the way to get us here to where we are on the cusp of, I think, something that is a tremendous opportunity for not just Kenmore residents, but all of King County. And Conservation Futures investment that we're making, it's the second biggest grant ever in the history of that program, which is almost a 50-year-old program. But I know that it's really too big of a project, in my view, to burden Kenmore residents alone to pay for it. And it isn't just a Kenmore project. It will bring people regionally there. So I feel that the county needs to be a key player. And that will include not only more CFT money, hopefully, but hopefully some parks money, because I do think that we'll have a connection there along the lake to the Burke-Gilman Trail when it's done. And it's just a tremendous opportunity to make that investment. So it's really a top priority for me in the work.
Appreciate that. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but we are going to be doing work. There's a little bridge on 175th that we're going to be replacing at some point. It's right over, going over Swamp Creek. It's right next to the Burke-Gilman, where the Burke-Gilman crosses Swamp Creek. And, you know, while we're doing that work, we'd like to at least put out the offer to work with King County to maybe get both replaced or do them at the same time or something, because we know it's just easier to knock out a couple projects at once. We tried that with WashDOT when we were doing 522 and offered to open it up and let them do their culvert, and said, now we're going to have to tear up 522 a second time. Well, not us. WashDOT's going to have to tear up 522 a second time to do that culvert now. But just want to flag that as a potential, because I don't know the health of that particular, of the Burke Gilman part of that bridge, but ours is nearing the end of its useful life.
And I think you and the city manager and I talked about that at our last meeting, that was a priority. And I think that there is an opportunity in the Parks Levy here for that critical infrastructure to keep the regional trail system working, to make sure that those dollars come forward.
Now, the Burke Gilman Trail, I think, is a really valued asset that we have here, and we really appreciate all the work that King County does and to keep that working. What else? Does anybody else, Councilmember Sassen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, it's
Hi.
good to see you here tonight. A couple of weeks ago, on January 27th, we had the Herrera Consultants come and speak to us about their 2025 aquatic plant management recommendations for our little corner of the lake. And your ears might have been burning because we had a conversation about, we floated a conversation about doing an
Unintended.
interlocal North Lake agreement that could potentially be under the auspices of the county. And I just wanted to plant that seed in a public way because we had some very interested residents about that.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Sassen. I'd be happy to work on that with you and your colleagues.
Councilor Lutzis?
I just wanted to start off with thanks. I mean, to have a representative at the county level who's so receptive and supportive of the work that we're doing on the local level, you know, we don't get that every day. So the support that you've shown our community is just night and day amazing. And we're truly grateful for the advocacy you provide for us at the county level, the assistance to work with a lot of the projects that we have going on here at the local level, whether it's bridges or Lake Point or environmental cleanup and stewardship, economic development, public safety across the board. And I just wanted to express our gratitude for all of your help along the way.
That's very kind of you, Councilmember Lutzis, and I appreciate the opportunity to get to work with you. You all know this, but maybe for the viewing public, Councilmember Lutzis and I attend a meeting along with Councilmember Shrednick. She's actually the chair of the board of the North Shore Park and Recreation Service Area. That's the quiet government that owns the senior center. I mentioned Suzanne Greathouse's work on that. For years, it was a meeting I hated to go to because it was always bad news. They had no money. We couldn't fix the place. But Councilmember Lutzis, as we prepare this next ballot measure, asking folks to renew their investment there, has really brought forward his, and you all know this, attention to detail, reading the record, asking questions, drilling in on the projects. And Councilmember Lutzis, it's work that the public doesn't get to see, but I want you to know that I've seen it and your colleagues have seen it, and the taxpayers are better off for it. So it's a privilege to work alongside you there, and thank you for the kind words.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
I'm going to jump on the Councilmember Demboski thank you train, appreciation train. I think one of the things that I most appreciate about, and our council appreciate about your representation for the city of Kenmore, is your attention to detail and ability to remember the things that are happening here. The moment Mary's Place left, you came in and found Lake City Partners to fill that incredibly important space. And that's something so important to our community and the region. So I want to thank you for that and your continual support for Lake Point and the Conservation Futures Grant that we've received. The vision that you have, we may someday have that beautiful amphitheater, but while we're at it, the incredibly important environmental restoration that will be something to showcase for the region, in addition to the important economic and like creative, sustainable economic development that we can make there. So always happy to see you here. And I want to thank you for all the good work you do for not only us, but all of King County. Thank you for your representation.
Councilor Shubnik?
If I might, thank you,
Oh, of
Deputy
course.
Mayor O'Kane. And it's been an honor to enjoy to work alongside you. And I know Kenmore's #1 goal, I think, in this current cycle coming out of your retreat is sustainability, working on climate change. And you've been the leader there with your colleagues, of course, but really a strong champion of that. And I do think that Lake Point not only delivers those recreational opportunities, but the habitat along the Sammamish River, Lake Washington waterfront, restoring that habitat, supporting our kokanee recovery, all things that this city is committed to. And if I can, on the Kenmore Senior Women's Shelter, that was a team approach, just like bringing Mary's Place. Mayor Herbig was a key leader, along with City Manager Kerr Lindsay, and bringing Mary's Place. And you all took a vote to change the zoning to allow it to happen in our old precinct there. And we were all kind of devastated when they said they were leaving, and had some meetings with Deputy City Manager Luke Ash and Tommy Clark, your Human Services leader. We went to other sites, begged them to stay. They said, Rod, we're not able to. And so we looked around, and Lake City Partners Ending Homelessness had the proposal for the Senior Women's Shelter. And I know you all follow closely, and probably everybody here, the Kenmore Neighbors Facebook group. But I have to say, I haven't seen in local government, and Councilmember Sasson came to some meetings as well when we were working on that, took a particular interest, but I haven't seen a community rally around something in such a joyful and supportive way as I have on this, with folks offering and actually coming to help clean the place up, paint it, take off the old chalk, fix up the floors, offering yoga for, senior women there, other services, donations. I don't think I've seen one negative comment on it. And this is a community that pays attention. And so I know we're going to celebrate formally. Again, it's opening on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Is it maybe 11 o'clock? Anyway, I hope the community will come. It's a joyful day, and I think Kenmore should be really proud of the folks that came together in your government and in the community to happen. And particularly when a week like this, when it's so cold, there's a need for it, and Kenmore's doing its part, and I think you should be really proud of it.
Just want to follow up on that comment that you just made. What you just said is exactly why we are so thankful for your representation. You see our community and the care that is here, but you're also able to tell the story of it and shine light on it. And thank you for that, because that really means a lot. Just that story about Lake Sydney Partners just really does demonstrate what our community is about. And I really appreciate that you can bring that to the table here. Thank you.
Councilmember Shrubnik?
Yeah, I just want to briefly jump on the bandwagon of the thank yous.
I'm
I
gonna get a bill for this, I think.
No, just, I just give the example of the NPRC, North Shore Parks and Recreation Service area. It's one of those committees, as you said, it's, it can be a little bit of a sleeper, but, it's one of those unsung roles. And I've just really valued Rod and his willingness to just show up and do the work. And even when it's, behind the scenes, trying to problem solve when we get stuck. And I've just really appreciated that. And, his participation in everything that I've seen him participate in is not pro forma. It is doing the work. And I just really appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilmember Shrubnik. I say this often, but I really mean it. It's not rote. It is a privilege to serve. And you all demonstrate that privilege by doing the work, taking it seriously, and it means a lot. I was able to secure in our last budget a $250,000 for the senior center in Kenmore over in Rhododendron Park. Not that was that hard to do, but the reason it came about is because Councilmember Shrubnik at the MPRSA meetings kept saying, hey, this district has services delivered in Kenmore to our seniors. Could we get a little money there? And to be candid, some of the other board members were like, well, I don't know, is that in the scope? Is that in the mission? We've got this big obligation here at the main senior center. And they said, well, it shouldn't be that hard. Let's just put a little capital money in the county budget and get the roof fixed up and maybe improve the meeting rooms in the building there. It's the city gifts that building to the senior center to provide those services. And I just, hopefully we'll be able to keep making investments there. But Councilmember Shrevenick, of course, is a champion for seniors. One example.
Councilmember Marshall.
Now I'm worried. I'm
There,
going to be really worried if Councilmember Culver says something.
indeed, there were scary moments at the NPRSA meetings, I remember, and one of the most alarming was then you said, you know what, let's do a levy. It was you. You said, do the levy, and it worked, and it happened, and it passed. That was great. So thank you for that. And thank you also for the Wayne Golf Course conversion to a public park. It's our last bit of open space, natural space around here, one of our last spaces. It's great. So to leverage that, I would just ask the same sort of positive magic and skill in some form or other to maybe help keep on inspiring us in all the local jurisdictions somehow to move towards a public pool, somehow, shape, way, or form in general, just the general good vibes. Thank you.
On the pool item, if I can, in the last Parks Levy renewal, I ran an amendment to increase it by 1 cent. It was called my Penny for Pools Amendment. It was the first time since the forward thrust movement of the late 1960s when the county built a lot of pools around the county that we were really re-engaged in investing in pools. We, as you know, the one forward thrust pool was at St. Ed's Park. That was Kenmore's closed because it just got old. Shoreline had one, a forward thrust pool. It got old. 50 years, they tore it down. It's a pool desert, if that's a term that makes sense, in North King County. With that Penny for Pools, which generated, I think, about $43 million, we included some money for studies. We ran 2 studies up here in the north end. I think the takeaway of that is we'll probably see a northeast pool and a northwest pool. Through the NPRSA, it looks like we're working to site perhaps one within the city of Woodinville. With a community center, the city has identified some land where it would work. And then I think to your west, Shoreline, they own a site near City Hall. It's a mini storage site, and they are moving to form a Metropolitan Parks District. And I think expect to go to their voters next year. I think it's not spilling the beans to say that based on the briefing I got, that the Penny for Pools will be continued in the renewal by the executive and boosted a little bit, actually quite a bit. And it's my goal to make sure that North King County's projects that are coming to life have a very clear path with significant regional county dollars to bring them to life. These are, I think of these projects like Lake Point are too big for one city to take on, and they serve folks beyond the city boundary. And that's where King County can play a role as the regional government to partner with our local jurisdictions and bring some of those dollars back. So Councilmember Marshall has championed the pools for a long time. And while I'm not sure, unless there's work I don't know, that we'll see one in the crown jewel of my district, we'll probably have one in each kind of corner that's at least reachable in the not too distant future.
Councilmember Culver.
Thank you. Good to see you, Councilmember Dabowski. You mentioned public safety budgets, and that's obviously been a frequent topic here. I'm sure the work is just beginning and it's early, but hearing about potentially a sizable budget reduction, if I heard that correctly. If you could just maybe speak to like the contours, does that become a pass the savings on to the partner municipalities? Or is that we are helping close the gap on that? Or like, what do you imagine that might look like if you have any idea at this point?
So, Councilmember Kohler, it is a great question, and maybe because it's probably a hard question. Here's what I know. I think we have 13 partner or contract jurisdictions where the county provides sheriff's deputies and they are police services in the city, and that we could not run our sheriff's department without those contract cities. There is no economic model that works without them, where we are just in a sheriff's office role serving the 250,000 people that live in unincorporated King County. So our city partners are essential partners to having a sheriff's office that works. Your city manager, Rob Carlinzi, has served as on the city manager's advisory committee for the partner cities for a long time. And I just make a plug for whoever you bring in to continue in that role. It's an important role. I don't think we know yet. The request for the $30 million targeted reduction from our budget office to the departments just came out. Sheriff Cole Tyndall sent a message out to our deputies saying that at least right away she doesn't see cuts. But I will tell you, I don't know how you reduce $30 million from that department without reducing FTEs. The model we have, though, with our city partners like Kenmore is you select the amount of services that you want. You choose the level of deputies that you want. And so I don't know that the cuts will manifest there. I would just say it's just very hard to provide the infrastructure with that level of cuts to be able to deliver that service. So I know that's not a good or complete answer, but I will tell you that as I learn more, and we'll be learning more here soon, I'm happy to circle back with you and keep you informed on that.
Yeah, appreciate it. Totally understand that it's it's fairly fresh news. So yeah, I appreciate that answer. Thank you so much.
I will say as well that I'm working with my colleagues, my vice chair is Councilmember Barone on the budget committee, and we're going to work like I was Jeannie Koval's vice chair, kind of hand in hand. He chairs our Law Justice Committee. I serve on the Law Justice Committee. We're meeting tomorrow for a mini retreat. And we're looking at all options. We don't have a lot of revenue tools. First, we will look for savings, but there is statutory authority for kind of a CJ sales tax, which is shared with the cities. It requires at this stage voter approval. A third of it is required by statute to go for what I'll call traditional law enforcement. The rest is flexible and can be used for things like co-responders and other services. But if that were to be put on the ballot and passed, 1/10, 2/10, 3/10 of a penny, each 1/10 of a penny in the county generates about $85–90 million now. 40% of that goes to cities based on population. So I think there's a discussion to be had. And in fact, I put in our last budget money, $50,000 for a regional public safety summit to bring stakeholders together from around the region to say, what should we do in this space from a policy and a funding perspective? And I've been working with our council chair, Councilmember Zahalai, Councilmember Barone, our Law Justice Chair, and others to see if we can make that summit happen and figure out, are these cuts we want to or will make, even if we don't want to? Is there interest in additional funding? What do the cities want to do? So I guess there's a lot of moving parts. There's some of the things I'm working on.
Yeah, I think speaking for myself, but I think I'm speaking for my colleagues when I say that we've been generally very happy with the service we've received in that partnership with King County Sheriff's Office. And it would be a real shame if this somehow turned into a bit of a budget spiral sort of thing where all of a sudden we get thrown a major bill and, then you start seeing cities figuring out they need to peel off, and then you get into kind of a death spiral, and that would be really too bad. Because for almost all the cities that are contracting, service is great. People are generally pretty happy with it, and it's saving us a ton of revenue. Not having to have our entire own infrastructure set up in our own police department. So we really value that partnership, and we want to see it continue to be successful. Yeah, I have you here. I did want to really thank you for the urgency you showed when Mary's Place was stepping out. I really appreciated the phone call that you called me up. You're like, what are we going to do about this? And I appreciate the urgency you brought to that.
Confess it was a bit of a panicked call, right? We're not going to let them leave, are we?
Yeah, no, I'd gotten the call from them a day before or a couple days before, and I was still like letting it sink in, and you jumped straight to action and got us all to work. And we found a really great solution to keep the precinct activated and useful while it's still going to be there. Nobody wants an abandoned building sitting around. The county doesn't want one. We don't want it. And it's being put to good use. And it's keeping people housed, which is important. So I really appreciate that and appreciate everything else that we've already talked about that you do for Kenmore and the rest of the county. And just to channel former Mayor David Baker, if you could do something about the blackberries along the Burke-Gilman Trail. No.
The never-ending issue.
I think if you were to walk up to to Governor Ferguson now,
Yes.
that he'd probably make a blackberry joke at this point still too. But anything further? All right, thank you so
I
much.
do have, if I could.
Oh, yes, of course.
Point
Sorry.
of personal privilege. I know it's late. It's the night of thank yous. Is it okay if I?
Yes,
stand?
please.
Well, this is a bit of a sad night for me because I have really enjoyed working with your city manager. And I think in the public comments, you heard a little bit of the reasons why. It's very exciting. And I think we're all kind of proud of you, Rob, that you're going on to this next big opportunity, and happy that I think it sounds like you'll still have a toehold here in beautiful Kenmore on the Lake. But I did want to express our appreciation with kind of a formal recognition for you, which if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read and then maybe present it. A little turnabout. All right. Whereas Rob Kurlindsey he did not know that I was going to do this, so this just happened to work out. Whereas Rob Kurlindsey has served with skill and dedication as the city manager of Kenmore by the Lake since 2012 and has overseen numerous initiatives that have transformed Kenmore into a thriving community, becoming a regional magnet for businesses and families. And whereas Rob has worked tirelessly to support individuals and families experiencing homelessness, including survivors of domestic violence, women and youth, by helping lead the effort to open Mary's Place in Kenmore and in the seamless transition to the senior women's shelter. And whereas Rob has been a steadfast leader on various policy issues, representing King County cities on the critical Public Safety Advisory Committee, advocating for cross-jurisdictional collaboration to restore the Sammamish River, and facilitating North End Mayor's meetings. And whereas Rob has worked to enhance Kenmore's natural beauty, providing opportunities for the public to enjoy its splendor by overseeing the development of Kenmore's public boathouse, as well as improvements to the creation of several parks, including the new Twahadis. They put that in there just to test me. Did I do all right, Twahadis? Okay, Twahadis Park, well, spearheading efforts to preserve the Lake Point property for the public. And whereas Rob has built enduring partnerships with state, federal, and local governments, including King County and the business community, which have led to Kenmore's reputation as a thriving city. And whereas Rob's kind smile, strategic vision, tireless persistence, and seemingly boundless energy have been instrumental in building Kenmore's sterling reputation. Now, therefore, I, King County Councilmember Rod Dembowski, recognize Rob Kurlindsey for his exceptional leadership that has improved the lives and well-being of tens of thousands of Kenmore and King County residents, and extend my best wishes as he embarks on his new endeavors dated this day. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you
No,
all
thank
for
you for
having
that.
me.
Do you want to get a quick photo?
Yeah, oh,
Sure.
of course.
Rob? Let's do a quick photo and then we're going to take a 5-minute break. Rob, quick one. All right, unless there are any objections, the Kenmore City Council will be in recess for 5 minutes. We'll come back at 8:40. Kenmore City Council will return to order. Next up, we've got our business agenda, city manager recruitment process options presented by City Manager Rob Carr Lindsay. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. With my upcoming departure, it is important for you to decide on a process for selecting my replacement. And so there's different options you can go with. One is a direct appointment of a strong candidate. And that's sometimes done when there's a really strong internal candidate. You can do a direct appointment without doing a process outside. So that's one option. And then there's actually a kind of a range of options, taking all the way to a full open recruitment process where you hire an executive search firm to do like a national search. So those are some options. If you do decide to go with an outside recruitment process, then you'll probably need to appoint an interim city manager because there needs to be somebody in this spot no matter what happens. So that's something to think about once you've decided whether to do a direct appointment or hire an executive search firm.
All right, I'll open up for discussion. Councilmember Shrubnik? Sorry, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my understanding of the process is we can make a motion and then discuss. Is that kind of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion that we go with a competitive process with an executive search. And I can speak to that when we get to that part.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go for a full competitive search with a search firm. Councilor Shrubnik, do you want to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I just, I feel strongly that we want to make sure we get the very best candidate, and I feel like a competitive search ensures that we do include whoever is interested in it and, you know, really brings everybody to their A game and allows us all, council and community, to see that A game. So that is my rationale.
Councilor Lutzis.
Yeah, I think adding on to that as well, I'm somebody who values more information, more inputs and options when evaluating the best option moving forward. And so I think that this is a viable path. I also think it's interesting to point out too that Rob was selected for this position through a competitive process. And he's also now departing thanks to a competitive process. And so there is some merit to that option there when it comes to finding the best person and making sure that people do their homework and we can evaluate people across the board.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Culver.
Thank you. A few thoughts. I will be voting against this motion. I think everybody knows where I'm at. I am in favor. Excuse me. I am more in favor of direct appointment. I think when you've got a clearly identified strong candidate in the mix, shall we say, not referring to anybody in particular, but I don't know. I would just want to make sure that if the intent was to have a competitive process, that it's an honest one and not a, you know, kind of a, not a fig leaf, not a for show, I guess, to use a word. Yeah, I have other things to speak to, but I think I'm going to collect my thoughts first, but I did want to get that down. So I'll be voting no.
Further discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any further discussion. Would the clerk please take the roll on the motion?
On the motion to go with a competitive process through an executive search, Councilmember Culver,
No.
Councilmember Shrubnik,
Yes.
Councilmember Sassen,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Lutsis,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane,
Yes.
Mayor Herbig.
Yes. Motion passes 6-1, and we will go through a competitive process. And then, Mr. City Manager, you mentioned that the next thing we need to then figure out will be an interim city manager.
Yeah, and just one thing, so if you want to go with an executive search firm, what I can do is bring proposals from 2 or 3 different exec search firms on the 24th. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that'd be great, so we could review those. And then could we also, unless there's any objections, could we also set up interviews with potential internal candidates for the interim role?
You bet. I can make that happen.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your work on this, and I hate that you had to do this work. So thank you. Brings us to staff reports. American Rescue Plan Act Final Report. Final report presented by Assistant to the City Manager, DEIA Coordinator Garrett Oppenheim.
Good evening. Not sure, is the slideshow live? Good evening. Yes, I am here to provide a final report on the American Rescue Plan Act. You guys heard from me several times over the last few years with regard to this program. I've of course been here in the past with my erstwhile colleague, Janet Quinn, but tonight it's just me here to give the final reports. Start out with a little bit of background. So the American Rescue Plan Act came as a financial aid in 2021, shortly after President Biden took office. It was designed to provide relief from the pandemic. It's $1.9 trillion in total, of which $350 billion went to state and local governments, parceled out essentially by population. The city of Kenmore received an allotment of $6.4 million. It was half in 2022, half in 2023. Might have been 21 and 22, sorry. And here's just some of the history, the timeline with regard to the city's American Rescue Plan Act programming. In June of 2021, the city received half of that, $6.4 million, and hired Stephanie Lukash to oversee the program as assistant city manager. Later in 2021, hosted some listening sessions with business owners and the public to devise programs. From late 2021 into 2022, we had a online survey through the Balancing Act tool where people could rank programs, had a budget of $1 million, and you were asked how you would spend that based on some programming that we had gotten from those listening sessions. And then in August of 2022, the 2 ARPA positions were created. That was, of course, myself and, as I mentioned, Janet Quinn. And then, of course, in 2022, I feel remiss that I forgot to put this on here, but the city received an award from the Association of Washington Cities. It was a Municipal Excellence Award for our ARPA program. That was to do with the community engagement process that I just talked about in the listening sessions. And then last year, around, just about 13 months ago, we had an ordinance where we chose to use the revenue replacement option to simplify reporting. And I'll get to that in just a moment, actually. So what we see here are the programs that were authorized in May 2022, and also the Kenmore Cares Direct Cash Assistance. So in 2022, you were presented with these 4 programs that had a lot of public support. They were homelessness response, human services funding, catch-up learning and childcare support, and business assistance. And you can see the amounts there that were authorized. City gave out $1 million in direct cash assistance to families who were in the most need during the pandemic. 412 households were served in the city of Kenmore. It was $2,000 per head of household and $250 more for each additional member of the household. The total number of people in the city who were served was 789. And this made a big difference for people when, as you'll recall, early in the pandemic, people were losing their jobs and the economy was really faltering. So this was a big benefit to folks here in the city. Then we had the homelessness response pilot program with Lake City Partners that was originally $50,000 for 1 year, and then it was extended for 1 more year. That was $18,000 for that year. We contracted with Lake City Partners. They brought outreach specialists here to the city of Kenmore, worked with Camp United We Stand. They go to the community court in Shoreline. They were doing office hours at the Kenmore Library. Now they do that at the hangar every week. 2 people who were previously homeless were moved into housing thanks to this program. And this contract is continuing under our relationship with the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. For the Human Services Program, we spent a small amount of money on the first aid kits, which have been available at the Senior Center and here at City Hall for free to anyone who comes in and asks for one. And those include items to help out with people's mental health. We also have done mental health first aid trainings on a couple of occasions here at City Hall. We've had good turnouts for those among the community, and several staff members have taken those too. The bulk of the $250,000 has gone to the Center for Human Services. They were providing, or are providing, school-based counseling, which is available to students and families. The program was at Inglemoor High School last year, and this year it is at Kenmore Middle School. And I can report that they actually just hired a new therapist who's providing counseling services 2 days a week at the middle school. You also authorized $100,000 in catch-up learning. This program at Cascadia College started last summer with a summer academy. And throughout the course of this school year, they have been doing what they call Wednesdays at Cascadia, where students can come and get tutoring help. And that's going to go through the end of the school year. And then there will be another summer academy next year. We are going to get some information about how many students are in that program in a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that for tonight. And then we also did the business assistance. It was $250,000. It started with $65,000 for brick and mortar businesses who were in urgent need in 2022. And then in 2023, the other $185,000 was awarded to both nonprofits, brick and mortar businesses, and home-based businesses. So of that $6.4 million, 1.9 was spent on the Kenmore Cares and the 4 programs I just discussed. And then the rest of the funds of the actual American Rescue Plan Act under that revenue replacement were spent on the police contract for last year. And what we did was set aside an equal amount of money in the special projects fund. And of that, 2.4 million was reimbursed to the general fund for the Holt property purchase. And then the other 2.1 million has been allocated to the biennial budget for this current biennium. And here you can see the programming that was approved to have those funds used over the course of the next biennium. You'll be hearing more about these over the next 2 years. These are projects that are spread across the city. We have some environmental things, some human services, some economic development. So you'll be hearing from the departments that are actually in charge of these in the future. But of course, these are now special funds projects, special project funds, and no longer are they ARPA projects. I just want to reiterate that this is the last word. This is it for ARPA. All of the funds have been expended. The one-time special projects made possible by ARPA will continue and be completed in this biennium, but all the ARPA funds are gone. We were able to accomplish a lot of things in this last biennium that we would never have been able to without this once-in-a-lifetime grant. So we just really want to reiterate our gratitude. You know, it was a big deal that the federal government provided this grant. And like I said, we were able to do a lot of really special things over the last 2 years. So that is all I have. So I'm happy to take any questions that you all have for me now.
Questions? All right, well, I just want to thank you, Garrett, for all of your work on this the last, 5 years now almost. I can't imagine how many hours you've put into this and how difficult some of this must have been for you and for Deputy City Manager Lukash. You did some really and Janet Quinn, you guys, the three of you did some really amazing work. And when I came to you with the wild idea of trying to get direct cash into people's hands, you just figured it out, which, thank you. Other folks might have said that it wasn't doable, but you scrambled and you figured out a way to make it happen, and I appreciate that. And I wish that the federal government would look at the success that local governments had with ARPA and continue to make investments in cities, because we do good work when we have the resources. And I think this presentation shows that. So thank you for all your work. I'm kind of sad this is the final ARPA update, but again, thank you for everything. We really appreciate it.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And the good work will continue. It's just under
Oh, I know. It'll just
auspices
be-
of special projects now.
Just be paid for general funds. No.
And I just want to make sure that everyone who worked on this gets credit, because it wasn't just me.
Oh, yeah,
It's
no,
Stephanie-
sorry.
Janet Quinn, Nancy Meehan, Tammy Cork, so many people have worked on this over the last few years. And I wanna
Yes.
make sure they all get the credit that they deserve.
Yes. No,
Thank
they
you.
all do. Thank you.
And Your Honor, if I could add,
Of course.
it's because of ARPA that we have Stephanie Lukash. So back when we received news from the federal government that we had $6.4 million being deposited in our checking account, it was really overwhelming. Like, geez, what are we going to do here? How am I going to, fit this in? And so I had known Stephanie from some other interactions through city stuff, and she was the first person that came to my mind. And I thought, wow, I wonder if I could get her to come over and run this. And the short version of the story is she said yes, and she came over, and I was able to bring her in using ARPA dollars to make that first entrance into our organization. And the rest has been pretty magical ever since. So when she ran that process, we did a pretty extensive community engagement process that Stephanie led, including online interactive methods such as the Balancing Act, and we got a really good community feedback on how to spend those dollars. And the process went so well, then this was mentioned earlier this evening, that we won recognition from the Association of Washington Cities and received the statewide Municipal Excellence Award for how Stephanie ran that process. So, and the money, like you said, Your Honor, has been put to really good work. And that's thanks to Stephanie and her team of people in administering those funds. And of course, thanks to you all for giving us the vision and the policy direction on how to spend it as well.
Next up, we have a staff report on the implications of House Bill 1195 and Senate Bill 5497, Washington Department of Commerce oversight of STEP housing permitting, including permit supportive housing, presented by Community Development Director Debbie Bent.
Thank you, Council. This is an information item only. There has been some legislation introduced regarding STEP housing, which is shelters, emergency housing, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing. And what that legislation would do is require that approval for those kind of housing developments would be through an administrative process. And also, if an application faced difficulty or challenges, it would empower the Department of Commerce to resolve disputes and enforce compliance and potentially withhold revenues from non-compliant local governments. So that's the gist of the legislation. I guess the good news is that the city currently allows all those particular kinds of housing through an administrative process, unless there is a request to divert from the zoning regulations, in which case that has been through the development agreement process. On the work program for 2025, there is a step housing work program item. This was presented as part of the docket, and based on council direction, this was to engage a limited term step housing advisory committee to provide advice to the council on recommendations for potential amendments regarding step housing, to be consistent with state law that was passed in 2021 and also consistent with the Department of Commerce guidance regarding implementation. So if this legislation does pass, then obviously that will be kept in mind with the recommendations from the advisory committee moving forward. So again, this is just an update to council on what the legislation is and how that relates to the proposed step housing work program. And I'm happy to address any questions. Thank you.
Questions? Councilmember Culver, then Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you. I mean, maybe this is too reductive of a question, but just to kind of get into the substance of it a bit, does it seem like this would preempt a lot of the work of the committee? Or, could you walk us through some of the contours where that would or wouldn't be the case, I guess, if that's not too in the weeds to ask?
Well, if the legislation passes, it basically prescribes an administrative process. So in any recommendations from the advisory committee would have to be compliant with that legislation. The process for approving step housing would be through the administrative process. So that's how the two things would relate.
Okay, and I guess maybe getting ahead of ourselves again, or getting ahead of myself, like what would be the kind of variations or the tools in the tool belt, so to speak, that could be part of those recommendations? I mean, one piece that the memo spoke to was the zoning variances piece, which is sort of a big caveat, right? Of like, yes, these can go right through unless there's a development agreement. And obviously there was a zoning variance and development agreements in a recent effort that we were all familiar with. But I guess I just wondered, could you unpack for us, like, are there other parameters that we think the committee would be considering? Or is that too abstract a question?
It's not abstract. I think it's early in the process. I think what will happen with the advisory committee is that staff would provide the context in terms of legislation, what the Kenmore regulations currently have, some examples based on the Department of Commerce model ordinance or other jurisdictions, to provide the framework and look at potential options. But again, if state law passes and requires an administrative process, there are different types of administrative process. So that would be something we would have to take a look at. And the question regarding the development agreement, which is not an administrative process, when there are variances to the zoning regulations, I think that's a question we would have to have further discussion, particularly with the city attorney on that particular question.
Sure. 10-4. Thank you.
Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you. For proposals that deviate from the code, wouldn't this legislation take away the right of the public to appear before the city council and speak, and for the city council to have to listen to the public in an open meeting?
Well, again, right now, the process that's in place, we have an administrative process for approving step housing, and it's when deviations from the zoning regulations, there are several ways to deviate, and one of the paths forward is through the development agreement process. So again, how state legislation, if it passes, would then preclude a development agreement or a deviation from code through something other than administrative process is more of a legal question, which I don't have the answer to this evening.
Okay, so it's perhaps not definitive that it would take away the public's right to that, at least at this point, maybe?
I don't have an answer to that, Councilmember Marshall. It's a question that's in my mind. And again, if the legislation passes and what that means in terms of Having a process outside administrative process to allow for deviations, again, I think it's sort of more of a legal question and maybe to be answered later, I guess.
Yeah, but under the plain language, it just says administrative, like for everything concerning permanent supportive housing. It's like categorical. It's more categorical than depending on the process, isn't it?
And that's how it's written right now. Again, the legislation has not been passed. And again, with legislation, the devil's always in the details on application. So again, that is one of the questions we'll have to address.
And didn't I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Didn't something similar die, a similar bill die the last time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Culver.
And just to clarify on that, it did pass the House last year and I think made it through a Senate committee or two, but did die later in Senate. But it has been brought back in both the House and Senate and passed out of the, hope I'm getting this right, a Housing Committee with a do pass recommendation and is headed to the Appropriations Committee, is my understanding. So, yeah.
Yeah, City Manager.
One clarification on development agreement. It's not allowed in much of the city, correct, Debbie? Development agreements?
You're testing my knowledge of the code.
Yeah, they're only allowed in a relatively small part of the city. Their development agreements aren't allowed throughout the entire city and certainly not the entire 522 corridor. We can get more details on, where development agreements are allowed, but it's definitely not something that's allowed everywhere in the city.
Councilor Marshall?
Yeah, I apologize. And anybody can answer this who's familiar with the legislative process. Do we have a rough timeline as to when the legislature, if they were to approve this or get something out of it, when might that get done? Do we have any idea, estimate?
I guess before the end of the legislative session would be, and I don't mean to be crass about that, but.
Hang on, I'm opening up our latest update, which had a lot of the stuff. So Policy Committee cutoff, which this has already passed, at least in the House, is coming up on the 21st. Then they have to get through fiscal committees by the 28th. And according to Councilmember Culver, is it scheduled in the fiscal committee?
Yes, my understanding, yes.
Okay. Then they have to get out of their chamber of origin. So House bills need to be passed by the full House. Senate bill is the same, March 12th. Then they'll have to be through their policy committees in the opposite chamber, April 2nd. Opposite chamber fiscal committee deadline is the 8th. Opposite chamber deadline is the 16th. And then they have until the 27th to work out any differences between what the House bills passes and the Senate passes through the concurrence process, which is a bit of a nightmare. So that's the general thing. Everything will be done by the 27th in a perfect world, although I have heard rumors that there might be a special session given the budget issues, but that wouldn't impact this, so. Councilmember Culver?
Yeah, one more tiny addition. It will be in the Appropriations Committee Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
All right. City Manager, did I see your hand or no? Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, anything else for staff report?
No, I'm just really grateful for this community and for this organization. We've got some really beautiful people here in this community, and it was apparent tonight, and I'm very grateful for that.
Couldn't have said it better. Sorry. Councilor reports and comments. Councilmember Culver.
Thank you. I have a classic left field topic I'm hoping we can take up in the future. Healthcare. It's prohibitively expensive, and all of the statistics tell us that we spend more money and have far worse outcomes in terms of well-being and life expectancy than most any other country, and it's not even close. The prohibitively expensive part has been in the sort of national zeitgeist recently for reasons people may be familiar with. There's a remedy in the works, though. The state legislature is taking up the whole Washington Health Trust bill to enact single-payer healthcare, which could put a lot of this tomfoolery behind us. We likely will not be the first city to adopt a resolution supporting it if we so choose, because Bothell is expected to beat us to the punch later this week. But they do have resolution language we can crib from if we are so interested in expressing our support for it. So I would like this council to take up this resolution for discussion at a future meeting if there's interest, and I would kindly ask for a second.
There's a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Second.
Or I'll.
All right,
third.
so discussion then, because that isn't, we don't put things on through a second, there has to be consensus or a majority. Discussion then about it. Councilmember Culver?
It's going to save a bunch of money and be great. That's it. And Senator Sanford sponsored the Senate version.
Good to know. Any other discussion? Is there any, are there any objections to talking about this on the 24th? Okay. Councilmember Culver, if I could ask you to maybe, in preparation for the 24th, send us circulate what Bothell has, circulate the bill, include the clerks and all this correspondence too, so they can include whatever they need for the 24th, so we can have that discussion.
Gotcha.
Awesome, thank you.
And I have a couple other things. Last week, I quoted testimony that cautioned 1195, testimony that cautioned against making homelessness a so-called debate. And just days later, we received a constituent email using that exact phrase. So as the internet loves to say, this was identified early on as a likely outcome, and I'm glad we now have the benefit of hindsight. And finally, I just want to remind our public to vote. You've got until 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Ballot box is just outside City Hall, or you can mail it back, no stamp required. It looks like an easy ballot. I'll leave it at that. That's all I got. Free Palestine. Happy Monday.
Councilor Marshall.
Yes, I wanted to ask the council, I think I had asked before, but I wanted to ask again, that everybody try and take a look at the Biden administration's HUD report on homelessness that came out in December, and that had a bunch of information, but one of the most significant to me was, and I think I said it last time too, a reference to a graph that's one of the first or second graphs in the report that shows that as the level of homelessness increased, the building of permanent supportive housing units and other units, but included in those permanent supportive housing units, also increased. And the graph also showed that as more shelters, or excuse me, as less shelters were built, homelessness also increased. So the gist seemed to be that permanent supportive housing, at least as that data showed, and it was a data question, wasn't working as expected. And that's not to say that it may never work or that it's not needed, but I think I was going to ask everybody to look at that because I think at some point when it's appropriate that I may make a motion that Kenmore take a stand opposing 1195 and the elimination of the public's right to come into this chamber for the issue to come before the council, for the council to listen to the people, for the people to be able to talk on an issue of the permanent supportive housing. This bill, the bill, for the most part, I mean, definitely I take Ms. Bent's advice in good faith that it's devil's in the details, but at least from everything we're hearing and the language of the bill now, it's just going to apply categorically and seems to eliminate the right of the people to be able to be heard. That's anti-democratic and it's wrong. So I just want everybody to look at that, and I'm going to consider bringing it as a motion. I'm not sure. It may not be even the right time if we don't know what else or how the bill is going to be changed. It could be altered. It could be transformed. So there may be some more time. I want to be cautious before I brought it back to the whole council to say, yeah, let's take a stance on it now when there still could be some changes to it. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. And then I may have said last time, also, I hope not, but there was a big shout out to the Public Works from a gentleman I met on one of my walks about replacing his lights, his street light. He thought it was very prompt. He put in a comment and you guys came out apparently very promptly and changed the light, fixed the light. He loved it. And also I caught a gentleman cleaning up smashed glass off the sidewalk down by his house after it'd been there about a week. You know, it was not close to his house. It was further down the street. So it wasn't exactly his frontage, but he was out there doing it. He said the city did a great job in terms of public works. And overall, he liked the direction the city had headed. And that was a Mr. Green, sort of up around the hill from my neighborhood. So great reports all around.
Councilor Sassen.
I really enjoyed just the praise for our city manager and our deputy city manager that we heard from our community today. It filled my cup. So I'm grateful that people came and said so much of what is on my own heart. And I also just wanted to echo what Councilman Dembowski said, which is that the open house for the Kenmore Women's Shelter is this Friday, the 14th at 11 o'clock. And I'm hoping that the community will show up.
Councilmember Shrubnik.
Yeah, I am grateful for this meeting. It was a meeting about gratitude, it seemed like, and just have really appreciated beyond words our staff led by Rob. So just wanted to say that, and it was great to see the gratitude in the community, both tonight and for Public Works over the snowstorm. We are truly blessed to have the staff that we have.
Councilor Lutzis.
Yeah, excuse me, I have a few things. First of all, we're in that time of year where regional committees are reapproving their local agreements, including the Seashore Transportation Forum and the Eastside Transportation Partnership. And I was curious what our process is. They were saying that we need to bring the agreements back to our respective cities and said that it could, in some jurisdictions, require council vote or action. And so I'm posing a question whether or not, when it comes to a revised agreement or renewal of agreement, if that comes before us.
Have we been sent the agreement yet, or?
We have the draft agreements and I.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to take a look at what exactly the
Okay.
agreement says and then figure out if it's an administrative thing.
Yes, we just got those in actually within the last couple of days, so I can forward those folks. Outside of that, I wanted to quickly thank our Public Works Department for their diligent de-icing and snow removal this last week. The roads were clear and de-iced, and I'm very, very grateful for that. It could have been a lot worse. So thank you for the round-the-clock work throughout the week. I also wanted to acknowledge Miss Debbie Bent for her award recognition again. Congratulations. A special thank you to Suzanne Greathouse for her tireless work for years for our community in so many different roles and capacities. I didn't get a chance to say it earlier, but Suzanne and I were appointed to the Planning Commission at the very same time years ago. So my first foray into public service was right alongside her. We sat next to each other on the Planning Commission. So I'm very grateful for that and grateful for all the work she's done for our community. And then just following in what the others have said, thank you, Rob, for your years of service. Again, I'm sure I'll have more to say in the coming weeks, but just want to acknowledge that we are grateful. And as you can see tonight, our community is too.
Deputy Mayor.
Last weekend, I had the opportunity to go to, the Florida Panhandle, an area that I had no idea was a hotbed of new urbanist design and architecture. And the reason for being there was really to get a feeling of what happens when cities plan for density in a way that is humane and walkable and works with the environment, and really incredibly importantly, stimulates economic growth and development. And I can only say I came out so inspired. The ability to build not super high buildings and create density in unique livable spaces with smaller homes and larger homes and mixed use all together in forms that I haven't seen here in the Northwest that have the look and feel of a town. And I'm really excited for the opportunities that we have to develop this city, the parking lots that we have to restore, finishing Kenmore Village and looking at how we do the TOD. We don't have to do it like what we've seen in our neighboring cities who have done some pretty incredible stuff. But I've heard we don't want the big towers and canyons. We want livable, comfortable places that are walkable. And I got a chance to really feel it. And I just wanted to share it's possible. And we have a wonderful opportunity not only to do that sort of development at Lake Point, but throughout Kenmore. And it's truly incremental development. But as we kind of look at if we organize our vision as a council for what this city can look like and feel like, we can be true. I mean, we're already doing a lot of cutting edge leading stuff, but the leadership we can provide to the region in development is pretty exciting and it's beautiful. Like I just want to share my excitement for what we have before us as a city. So I also, gosh, it was so wonderful to hear such great acknowledgement of our staff. Rob, we're truly fortunate to have your leadership. And I have to say, we're truly fortunate to have Deputy City Manager Stephanie Lukash here under your mentorship and learning the ropes with you and hearing our entire team get acknowledgement. Stephanie, you certainly got a lot of props today, and I want to make sure that you know that those were heard by each and every one of us on this council. And we're just grateful for the work that both of you do. And anyway, Debbie, well-deserved, by the way. You, I want to use this word trailblazer. I don't know if that's the right word, but you're a leader and you get things done for this city. And thank you. That's it.
All right. I just want to remind everyone to fill out the retreat poll that got sent out to you by the clerks. I believe they have not heard back from a couple folks. Otherwise, they would not have sent me a message asking me to remind folks to fill that out. So if you could all do that, we can get that one-day retreat scheduled. I believe that I'm the only person right now signed up for the next Saturday, the 15th, Coffee with Council. I would love to have somebody with me if anybody is available. You're going to join me, Councilmember Culver? Okay, great. Wonderful. And then only because it came up today, I was at the hangar for a little bit today, minding my business. And I ended up in a conversation with somebody kind of randomly who just went on and on about how great the hangar is. It was just kind of a wonderful conversation. Even before he knew who I was, he was just, isn't this place great? Are you from around? You know, like it was just really funny. And we had a wonderful conversation about it. So I just want to pass that on to our city manager here. And it was packed. I mean, it was what did it say? It's a Monday. It was packed on a Monday at like 10 a.m. That building is just one of the most phenomenal things we've done in my time on council. And that came out of Rob's head. So that is a mark that will be here for decades. And yeah, that's all I have right now. So nothing more to come before us. We are adjourned.